Today we are joined by Robert Altomare, founder of BreathEasy.org. We'll be discussing all kinds of different topics in regards to freedom, also the BreathEasy app, and what BreathEasy does. Thanks for coming on, Robert. How's it going?
Hi, George. It's great talking to you. Doing really good. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. Obviously, this was a bit left field for me, actually, because one of our subscribers basically mentioned you guys. And I thought, this really aligns in certain aspects. And, we had to get you on just to discuss what you're doing, how you're sort of preparing yourselves for this app that you've got, and what you guys are doing in regards to solutions to freedom. I guess talk about, to sort of start off, your background and where it all started, and your sort of story to where you are now.
So a little bit about me, a little background. So I spent, I'd say, probably the first part of my career, 23 years in defense work, working for either active duty in the military or even after the fact, working for the government itself in, Defense Department and that sort of thing. And then, after a while, you get tired of that and you're like, okay, you're looking for a change. So I went back to school, got my master's degree, and then from there just kind of entered the private sector, just, doing regular work, right? Some financial analysis. I did a little financial analysis and business analysis, that sort of thing. Nevertheless, so fast forward to 2019, 2020, I was living in Portland, Oregon, which is Antifa Central. It's on the west coast of the United States, up in the Northwest. And it's right north of California and south of Canada and Washington State. And when I was first living there, it's a great city. Their mantra, their motto is "Keep Portland Weird," and it's the truth. Portland was a great city, and it was actually, to my eyes, a very European feeling city. A lot of green downtown and that sort of. I spent a lot of time overseas as well, in Europe and elsewhere. So I was very comfortable in Portland. But then, of course, the lockdowns came and COVID and all that. And if there's one thing that these leftists love, as left as Portland is, what they love is just control of another, right? Just having control over some other person. So when the lockdowns came and the governments basically enlisted local businesses to enforce these mask mandates, saying, you can't go anywhere without a mask, or if you're going to be inside a building, you got to wear a mask. And it was these businesses that were enforcing these rules. And that chafed me, that obviously I'm not going to wear a mask. I knew something was up when they said you needed to start wearing a mask, because at the very, very beginning, when COVID first broke, that first week or two, I took it seriously. Oh, people are getting sick and all the rest, the whole thing. And, but I knew something was wrong. I stopped believing it as soon as they mandated masks. Then I'm like, no, that doesn't sound right. That's just silly. And I don't know if you happen to remember this, but they were preparing all the hospitals and not letting people go to the hospitals for normal reasons, because in advance of mass casualties and all this. Well, it just so happens that I had an allergic reaction to something, and I had to go to the hospital right around the corner from my apartment right during that time. It was February, I think. And I noticed, because it was all prepared for all this mass casualty, and nobody was there. The hospital was empty. There were no COVID patients at this hospital. And I even mentioned it to the person. I'm like, where is everybody? And he said, oh, well, he just didn't give me a really good answer. And that was another nail in the coffin. Like, what's going on? If COVID is so deadly and this hospital is essentially closed to normal operations and only COVID patients, where are they all? And then, of course, the requirement of the mask. I'm like, something's not right. Something's not happening correctly. I don't understand what's going on. And when they required the mask, and I basically took it upon myself, saying, no, a mask is useless And, you get a little claustrophobic wearing a mask, right? So at the beginning, I refused to wear a mask. And I think I just mentioned to you, I was Mr. Angry, like right on with everybody else, telling these waitresses and business owners and, everybody, because remember, the businesses had not shut down yet. They were just requiring masks everywhere you go. And that went on for a little while. And because I refused to wear a mask in Portland, Oregon, well, I got kicked out of more businesses than I can count, right? And so I suddenly realized, okay, so what am I going to do here? How am I going to navigate this? But what was interesting, the interesting discovery that I made was that there were some businesses that did not kick me out. There were some businesses who didn't want to go through the trouble of mandating a mask or requiring a mask to enter their building, or they didn't believe it in the first place, right? Well, over time, what I realized was that I was putting together a network of businesses for my own use, grocery shopping, pizza, Chinese food, gasoline, pet food, whatever, that I had a small network. It was a small network. It was still Portland, Oregon, but it was a small network of businesses that I could go to and never had to wear a mask. And what I was instinctively doing was I was implementing these POW resistance techniques that I had learned when I was in the military 20 years ago. Essentially, one of the techniques that they teach you to help you survive and maintain your sanity in a POW camp is something called testing. So because what you do is you test your prison guard. Can I get away with this? And if he lets you get away with that, then can I get away with this? And he lets you get away with that. Can I get away with this? And essentially the entire time you're expanding your radius of liberty, of freedom, right? So because I was testing, I had more freedom to walk around without a mask than the guy next to me did, who wore a mask everywhere, and never bothered testing the business. So all during that time, I had this network of businesses that I didn't have to wear a mask. I can count on the number on my hand how many times I wore a mask at all in Portland. But then I moved, right? I had enough of Portland. I'm done with this. And I moved to Florida. Florida, of course, is leading the way in liberty and freedom and all that. But this was at the end of 2020. And even in Florida, I call it free Florida, even in free Florida, there were still some businesses that required you to wear a mask. Big box stores, mom and pops, it was the whole range. But I didn't have my network, right? And I needed to know, am I going to get hassled? I wanted to know that before I even went so I could go somewhere else instead. So I didn't have my network. And that was the kernel of the idea for BreathEasy, right? If there were only some way that I could look ahead of time, search out a business and get a thumbs up or a thumbs down, hey, this business is great, or avoid this business. And then over the next several months, I slowly developed, found a developer to code it for me. And now we're live with the app itself.
Amazing. Yeah, I think it's a great sense of like building a community for people to be able to know in advance is something I know I would use for sure. Like I didn't even know about it until, the subscriber mentioned you guys, but I'll definitely use that app, especially here. So yeah, it's a really good idea. I think it really does allow people to like focus their currency on freedom-based people and businesses, which helps the community grow as well. So
yes.
How's it going with BreathEasy at the moment? I mean, is it in multiple cities at the moment in the US? Is it going to be global potentially?
Yes, it is. It's on the iPhone. It's on the Apple App Store now, and it's on the Google Play Store now. For the Apple App Store, it's nationwide in the US. If you can get to the App Store, you can get to it. On the Google Android, on the Android version, The Google version of the app is available in 176 countries, all over Europe, the UK. It's available pretty much everywhere. I want to check on Australia. I neglected to check on Australia because Australia and New Zealand they need this very, very badly. And so I need to check on that and start working on getting the word out. I was working on it yesterday, trying to get the word out in Australia to see if they could get that going over there.
Let's say
if you want, by the way, I have a, you can probably edit this out, but I do have a PowerPoint that I could share up on the screen, and it'll show the app and different key points about it if you like.
Why not? I mean, obviously for the audio members, they won't be able to see it, but you can, just talk through it if you're happy to do so. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, one moment. Let me bring it up.
In terms of just a quick question while you do that, let's say obviously all the mask mandates start going away and stuff like that. How will it work in a sense that you can still visit places where you know they are freedom based? Because obviously we're seeing mask mandates drop mostly. Will it continue in another way, in a sense where how will it work?
So I was talking to a friend the other day about exactly that, and that is, every time these leftists and these communists try to put some sort of limit on liberty and freedom and the human spirit, it boomerangs on them. It doesn't neutralize it. What our response is always over and above what they ever anticipated, right? So instead of just negating mask mandates, that all you're doing there is just holding the line, right? No, we're going to go well beyond that. And that's already happening, where you may have heard the term parallel economy or patriot economy or what have you, right? So there are many businesses out there that are making it known that they are patriots and that they value liberty and freedom and all the rest. Well, what BreathEasy is doing, the BreathEasy app is no longer find businesses that don't require masks. It's not about that anymore. That's where the idea started, right? But this is the boomerang effect, and it's boomeranging on them and then going beyond them. So instead, what BreathEasy allows the user to do is to find those patriot businesses and let other users know about them, whether they requires masks, don't mask, whatever. Is this a woke business? Is this a business that you don't want to do business with, right? Because of any number of different things, right? Well, if that's the case, then vote that business down and let the rest of the BreathEasy users know about it. Conversely, if this business is a patriot business or values liberty and your rights and all the rest, however that is measured, because I don't want to put a metric on it, because of course this is worldwide, and every community is going to have their own thresholds, right? Yeah. And the app itself was built primarily for the local community to build their own network, right? Their own network of patriot business. So essentially, I asked the user to ask the question: is this a business that I want to invite into the parallel economy? Does this business merit, deserve my dollars? If my values are liberty, freedom, etc., do I want to do business with that business? Do I want to give them my money? And that's how it works. And of course, every business gets a score, right? Mm-hmm. So, as a matter of fact, here I've got the PowerPoint up. Let me just let me see if I can share my screen with you. Leave share.
If you can, just talk through it.
I will. Absolutely.
As we've got, nice one.
So, of course, now BreathEasy itself, what I want to explain where the name came from. And the BreathEasy is a play on words for speakeasy, right? So here, it advances automatically. I apologize. All right, hold on. Let me just
take two.
It advances automatically. I apologize. Let me just get this.
All good, all good. Take your time. I think the parallel economy will continue now. I think it's going to be like, I think I've said this before, it's like two different societies now. It's going to be a very interesting going forward.
So you should, let me just share my screen again. There we go. Right. So the idea here, so BreathEasy, during the 1920s and 30s, the United States prohibited the sale of alcohol. However, Americans, what they did was they created secret bars or secret saloons where you could have a drink. And they were obviously illegal, and they were called speakeasies, right? It's just a 1920s English-American term. Anyway, so this speakeasies were illegal bars that were hidden behind doors. And what I realized was that these businesses now in 2020 and 2021 and 22, these businesses who were not enforcing these mandates were very much like secret bars. They couldn't advertise that they wouldn't bother you. You just had to know, right? So that's how the name BreathEasy came about. It's like a speakeasy. It's a secret business that won't hassle you about wearing masks, or it's a secret business that respects your rights and liberties. Sorry, man. I'm trying to figure out how to.
No worries.
No, this is really it's irking me now. So on this screen here, what you see on the right-hand side, you see the BreathEasy app itself, right? With an up vote and a down vote. It's very, very simple. And the idea here is that you can avoid woke businesses and patronize patriot businesses by using the app, right? You can look ahead of time, and you can see on the main screen there's a search function. And if you can Google the business, if it's in Google, it will pop up, right? So you can Google accounting, you can Google pizza, you can, anything you want. You can search on the BreathEasy app for that business, and the results will show up. Now, every business has a score, right? So then you can sort by score, et cetera, when in the results. And you can see here, so very easily, the idea here is that you have to be at the business in order to vote. And the reason for that is to avoid fraud, right? Some keyboard warrior, back on the, at home, downvoting patriot businesses and ruining their score. Well, I fully accept that we are at war, and I have to make sure that that does not happen. So the idea here is that you have to be physically in front of the business in order to vote. And the phone can see the businesses around you.
What's your current user list at the moment? How many users are currently using it?
We're still growing, but not as many as we would like. Still we have users all across the country. I'd say we have some up in Portland for sure, California, Virginia, Ohio, Florida for sure, Texas, all over the place, all over. As far as numbers are concerned, we're still in startup, so
it's been 3 months, hasn't it? So
yeah. And here's the thing too: is that what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to avoid advertising. On the main platforms like Facebook and stuff. I don't want to give them any more money or strength because guess what? If you are a business and you want to advertise on BreathEasy, we more than welcome you. But we consider advertising to patriots it's a privilege, right? So the business has to maintain a score, and it's a pretty low score, to be honest. But it has to maintain a level of credibility in order for them to be able to advertise on BreathEasy. So you can see here on this next screen here, every business has a BreathEasy score, and you can see that there on we call that a business card. And what the business card is basically, this is where you vote, right? Voting is done on a 5-point scale where the gray right there in the center is neutral. Everybody starts off with a score of 3.0 on a scale of 1 to 5, right? 1 is the super bad and 5 is super good. So what happens is that as votes come in, those votes get turned into scores, and then those scores are applied to the business. That way, when you do a search or you show up at a business, you can look at the score and determine, hey, is this someplace I want to go or not?
So you said obviously it's available on Google and Apple App Store. I wanted to ask, is there any censorship resistant approach that you're thinking of going down? Just because obviously absolutely. We know that apps are getting deleted and all kinds of things. So if this grows, for example, I'm sure that it won't last very long in the Play Store. So is there any blockchain solutions potentially that you guys are looking into?
I hadn't considered blockchain, though. That's an interesting idea. But yes, we absolutely. So it's basically in phases, right? We can't do everything all at once because simply we don't have the resources to do it. So first phase was Apple iStore or Apple Store. Second phase was Google Play Store, and then third phase will be a web-based app, right? Google or not Google. I'm sorry, Gab. If you're familiar with Gab, I'm on Gab and only Gab. Gab, it does not go on the App Store, and it is not on the Play Store for obvious reasons. So we're going to follow that same model of we're going to have a web-based version of the app, probably fairly soon, probably in the next couple months or so. We're still small enough that we're able to fly under the radar for now, but yes, it's absolutely in the works.
Yeah, I mean, some people ask me as well about Cryptonymous, our solution for sort of the membership site in regards to getting out of the banks. And at the moment, it's literally just PayPal as a solution. It's just to get it up and running. And I understand where you are. It's just to get it up and running. But the other solutions will be there whilst you're growing. I think that's important to know.
Speaking of cryptocurrencies, that was another idea, and it's a little down the road, and I may even reach out to you later when we're ready. But we're talking about parallel economy now, then what about building a cryptocurrency based on votes, right? Where every time somebody votes, they earn some fraction of a coin.
Yeah.
And then those coins become transferable to patriot businesses, right? It was an idea that I had probably a couple months ago, but of course, like you just said, we're just simply we're not there yet. But it's definitely I've got a whiteboard here of ideas that we're going to implement. It's just a matter of time.
There's a lot of things you can do with this, there's so many solutions that you can go down with crypto or with other tech solutions. So it's something that improves slowly.
Right. So I think that the secret sauce of BreathEasy is what we call the alternative business list, and that's what's on the screen right now. Is basically a description of what the alternative business list is. So here's the idea, right? Let's pretend that you're out running your errands and you walk into a business and they value your freedoms and liberties and they welcome you and you want to invite them into the parallel economy and you hit that upvote. Congratulations. Welcome to the parallel economy. You now have a higher BreathEasy score than you did before. Congratulations. But then by the same token, you might encounter a business that calls the police on you or requires a mask or simply supports leftist causes that you don't think need to be, aren't in line with your values. You want to vote that business down. So here's what happens. This is the secret sauce. When you vote a business down, let's say, for example, this barbecue place here down the street from me, you downvote the business, and then once that vote is confirmed, once you hit the confirm button, BreathEasy will look in its own database and look for, similar businesses of the same category. You see restaurant, and it will provide you a business with a higher score, right? So you now have a choice. Let me explain it again. So when you downvote a business and the score is low, right? You provide a low score. Well, what happens is BreathEasy will then search its own database for businesses within the same category but with a higher BreathEasy score. So I remember during the lockdowns and all the rest, this is a direct result of my own experiences. And that during the lockdowns, sometimes I was forced to wear a mask because I had no other choice. I didn't know of another business. Let's say if I wanted to buy dog food or something, and this dog food store needed me to wear a mask. Well, where else am I going to get dog food? Well, now with this, it will provide me a list of other pet stores that don't require a mask, or at the very least have a higher BreathEasy score than the one that I'm standing in front of right now that's hassling me. So there's never a reason now to compromise your own principles just to buy dog food, right? It's not a good deal. So we provide that opportunity.
Excellent. No, it looks good. I mean, in regards to the suggestible, let's say, alternative restaurant, would that be in a local area, or would it be, could it actually just spill out something quite far away, for example?
No, yeah, that's a great question. So if you remember, the app itself was built with the local business in mind. So when a user does a search, he's searching out to, I want to say 25 miles. So if he's searching for an accountant, it will go out 25 miles and search your local area. Same here. The alternative business list seeks out businesses of a higher business score, BreathEasy score, out to 25 miles. The only exception to that is when an advertiser is advertising on a national scale, right? So imagine you're an accountant or a bakery or something, and you have a mail order muffin business, right? Well, you're going to want a national campaign. So your national campaign overrides that rule, right? You will be visible nationwide, regardless of the 25-mile limit. But yeah, typically the search and the alternative business list goes out to 25 miles.
Cool. Excellent. I mean, is there any, in regards to future plans for BreathEasy? I know we discussed the sort of a couple of different things, but what is the sort of next step for BreathEasy and what you guys have got planned?
So yes, we're working on it right now. I gave the developer the green light just a week or so ago to develop a modification to BreathEasy and to allow users, because we're entering, I don't know if how international your listenership is, but in the United States, we're entering in the next couple months our election season, right? Every 2 years we go through an election season. And this year is in November is the next election. So the idea here is to modify BreathEasy just a little bit so that voters, people who are out voting for their candidates, can identify irregularities or voter intimidation or problems with the machines at the location that they are voting at, right? Because what BreathEasy can see around it, it knows what locations and buildings and businesses are around it. And in the United States anyway, polling locations where voting occurs, happens in established buildings, right? So when a voter observes on election day, hey, this machine changed my vote, or this polling worker attempted to intimidate me, or any number of problems. Well, you can go into the BreathEasy app and make that observation known. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take all that information and then share it, right? And basically put a spotlight on these individual locations that are having voter integrity problems. And of course, this is kind of back to that boomerang issue. Not only are we maintaining the line, but we're going to go so far beyond it that we're basically reshaping the entire economy, for one, and how we do everything, namely, our elections as well. So that's coming up. It's in development now. They're working on it. It's not that big of a tweak. So we're going to it'll be ready for election season for sure, and you'll be seeing communications on that here pretty soon, actually.
Nice one. I mean, it's hilarious to see a senile old man who can't even put a sentence together. Actually, people believing that's the person running the country. It's quite jokes. I mean, you have to laugh, really. I've laughed a lot, actually, in the last couple of years. Mostly the last year. Like you said, I think there's a lot of anger in the first year of like what things were how things were going on. And to be honest, there is a lot of people going through a lot of things. But you do have to kind of laugh at some of the stuff that's going on as well.
It would be sad if it weren't so funny. It would be funny if it weren't so sad. You know,
I want to ask you this, because this is like from my personal understanding. I mean, we all have different opinions, right? Do you think that America's issues and the global issues can be solved with politics? Because in my opinion, we saw Trump in power, who was pushing vaccines. Then we had who started the whole Operation Warp Speed. Then we also, obviously, we know what's going on now. I mean, these guys are a joke. But do you actually believe, in your opinion, that we can solve our society's issues through the political system as it is?
What a great question, George. My belief is that politics should be nothing more than the voice of the people themselves, right? Politics is merely the instrument by which the will of the people is enacted. However, what we discovered in the last couple of years is that politics as it exists right now does not represent the will of the people. Right? So if politics and policies and all the rest do not represent the will of the people, then governments have no mandate. They are a de facto tyranny and dictatorship dressed up to look like a democracy, right? And what's putting the truth to that is the discovery that so many of our elections have been compromised already. How far back have they been compromised is a big question. And fraud vitiates everything, so we'll see how that goes. Can politics solve it? I see politics as a tool, right? It's a wrench. It is a mechanism by which the people make their desires known. So in my humble opinion, we have already won the war. And the war is the people are now awake and understand their situation, that government does not represent them. Even in the macro, all the way down to the micro, it simply does not represent them. And as you see, BreathEasy, from the economic standpoint and also from the voter integrity standpoint, BreathEasy is just but one piece of that puzzle to correct it, right? It's just a small little piece, right? But the bigger battle, the bigger war has already been won, and that is people know our situation. And now there are being steps like that, there's that boomerang again. It's going to not only stop it, but then fix it. That's my take.
It's an interesting, like whatever's going to happen next is interesting, because most people now, in my opinion, what I can see, don't. There are obviously a lot of like people who still go along with stuff, but like even the average person in 2020 who was, wearing their masks and stuff, and the vax and all that. But let's say, I mean, a lot of people right now, are really not. They do not trust their governments anymore. Because if you do trust your government right now, I mean, you've got to have some sort of. I'm not even going to say, but like you can see now that even the average people back in 2 years ago are actually questioning everything now. Maybe they're not putting steps to doing something different, but they can at least understand that there's something wrong. So I guess, the next step is to do something about it. And I'm in that, going back to your opinion on the politics side of things, I'm like, I have some resemblance to, some pull to, the only thing that the left used to be was that I actually, sort of kind of had some attachment to, was that they didn't really believe in war and stuff like that. But I mean, now I can't even see anything that they do is like resemblant of anything that is for freedom. It doesn't have anything there. I'm actually, seeing myself really I would rather be sat at this moment in time with someone who's a full Trump supporter, even though in my opinion, Trump was a honeypot for people to see that someone's doing something in the political system, but he's not really. I would rather sit with those guys because they at least understand that there's something wrong, and they believe in freedom. So that is where I sit. I'm nowhere near a politics man. I don't actually believe in voting for someone to basically make laws for you. At this point, that's where we are. I believe maybe in the smallest government possible. Making government as small as possible. And, that's where I believe if there is any government, it should be as small as possible. There's also I guess there is an argument for completely no government at all, because they always grow into something like this. Because America wasn't always like this. It was, they left Britain and other countries in Europe because of a tea tax that was like barely anything. At the time it was like 1 or 2% tea tax, and people decided to like go to another land where there wasn't that. Now we're talking, half your wages being docked in tax to pay for a welfare state that doesn't work and all that.
I would submit that the reason that we broke from England was more complex than simply than the one tax.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the American Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, if you take the reverse of that Bill of Rights and make them statements, then you see what England was doing. The Third Amendment is the federal government is not allowed to quarter soldiers in private homes, right? So the government, the army couldn't come in and I would be forced to put soldiers in my spare bedroom. Well, that was one thing that England was doing, is that these colonists, remember they were colonists, had no right to privacy and no right to personal property. And these soldiers they were forced to feed and house British soldiers. You could go on and on the 10 amendments or first 10 amendments, but I'm a friend of mine. She says principle over party, right?
Yeah.
Which I agree with 100%. Her name is Chris Ann Hall. If you can get her on the show, I think she would be a great guest for you. But she and I are old friends. We go back a long way. And she's right. Principle over party. And whether it's Donald Trump, DeSantis, or any number of political candidates, as long as they embody, freedom, liberty, and the right to choose. And when I say right to choose, I'm not talking about abortion. I'm talking about the right to self-agency, right? Then that's the principle that you need that supports human sovereignty, right? You are a individual.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Last question, I guess, is like where before we go into where people can find your work, where do you think things are going next, in your opinion? And just what do you think is the next stage in our crazy decade ahead? How do you see it happening?
I will say that I gave up trying to predict the future many years ago. Right? Because you couldn't predict any of this, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's true.
I will say, here's my outlook. Is first and foremost, the war is already won. You cannot unsee what we have seen. You can't, right? So I always take the long view, saying that we will eventually win. And embedded in that eventual win, there's going to be some losses along the way. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. And I fully expect we're going to lose some. And I take that as a cost of doing business, right? It is the cost of the war that we are in. Sometimes the bear eats you and sometimes you eat the bear. But if victory is assured, no matter what, then there's really no real reason to get super agitated. We have to take action. And that's what BreathEasy is doing. BreathEasy is taking that action and contributing to the fight. But I don't expect to win every battle. I fully expect to get taken off the App Store and the Google Play Store. I'm waiting for it to happen. Yeah. But we're prepared. We know that we're at war. What do I see in the immediate future? Tough to say. Like I said, we're going into our national elections this November. And I have a feeling that will be a watershed moment, for better or worse. Because if there is a giant, what we call a red wave of conservative candidates getting elected, then that takes us down one particular path. If we see that does not occur, then that's a different path, but for a different reason. It doesn't mean that Democrats are going to suddenly run the country, because guess what? Biden is not running the country, and nobody respects Biden, even though he's president, but everybody knows he cheated. So if you have 80, 90 million people who are voting red, who are voting for the conservative ticket, and they don't win, then you know the fix is in, and the legitimacy of those elections fall even less to what they are now. If once you lose the mandate of the people, you're done. You're done, and it would be difficult to describe, predict, how that'll work out.
Yes, I would say this about the sort of leaders in quotation mark of the world. A lot of them have stayed around through elections, even though they're like heckled by most of the population. I believe it's due to their sort of signed up to the World Economic Forum or something like that. Macron, he's been there for years, but no one likes him. Boris Johnson was there for a while. They're just going to replace him with a World Economic Forum type person anyway. But it seems like they stay on, the ones that they, Trudeau, another one. It's interesting.
That tells you that the elections are not fair altogether. They're not legitimate elections. And a friend of mine once said a long time ago, said just because they're in power, the only reason they're in power is because they have that leverage right now. But it doesn't last forever, and things are changing. So I don't know. Ultimately, I am quite hopeful for the future, because the questions that we're asking now, just in the last couple of years, a couple of smart cookies out there are going to start wondering about elections 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And once you start asking questions and that there are no ready answers, it's like a splinter in your mind. You cannot get rid of that question. And too many people are making questions right now for us to ever go back to the way it was.
Which is a good thing, actually, I think, because we all lived, including myself, I was in a complete different world compared to now. I wasn't even thinking about any of this. So I guess COVID, in a way, was a blessing to a lot of people as well. We could say that people had bad times, and I'm sure they did. But that for a lot of people, it changed a lot of people's lives in a positive way. I think a lot of people used it as a positive chance to change their lives. So that's one thing I would say.
I remember when I was a child, I had chicken pox. Having chicken pox as a child inoculated me for the rest of my life. And as a matter of fact, other mothers, once a child had chicken pox, other mothers would bring their child over to catch chicken pox so that they would become inoculated naturally. And it's entirely likely that COVID is our civilization's chicken pox. Because once we get it, once we see reality for what it is, there's no going back, and we are inoculated for a very long time.
Yeah, no, I like that. We can definitely leave it at that, because that's a good, a nice positive tone to end on. Because I think there's so much hope. There's a lot of fear out there, but I can't take in that information as just fear-based, because you can get fear-based information from the alternative space as well as the news. So, when we're talking about conspiracy theories all the time and bringing in that fear, it's just as bad as the news. Maybe one's more true than the other, but I would say that it's still bringing in a very low energy, which will make you not really want to take action and be scared about doing anything. So I would say focus on you and what feels right to you, because you'll know the answer. You don't need to listen to this for answers. You don't have to listen to the news for answers, for sure. And even, guys on Odyssey. So I think it's definitely within us to find the truth and to make the right decisions for ourselves and our families.
Absolutely.
So where can people find you, Robert?
Yes. So for right now, you can find me on Gab at BreathEasy, right, is my handle there. I post on there quite a bit. You can also find me at www.breatheasy.org. I'm assuming you'll probably have it up on the screen or something. And then on the App Store and Google Play Store, you just search for BreathEasy. But if you go to the website, there are links directly to the app that you can download it there.
Yeah, I'll make sure all the links are in the show notes. Thanks again, Robert, for joining me. Potentially we can have you on again in the future to discuss the developments on BreathEasy, see where it is in the future.
Yeah,
nice one. I guess make sure you guys subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Share if you know someone that this might be valuable to. Also, check out the show notes again for all the stuff that Robert's mentioned in regards to BreathEasy. And also, we have a link to our cryptonomousconsulting.com membership, which aims to help you guys grow and preserve your wealth, to have the potential to build away from the system and the current issues in the economy. We'll put those links in the description as well. Peace and love to you all, guys. Thanks for listening.